how does alcohol really take away women's power, and how does alcohol impact us differently than it does men? As I was doing this research specific to women, this was something that kept coming up. Women who drink regularly have a decline in their mental health. Hi friends, welcome back. Today we're talking about how women are giving up our power. And this is something that's really serious and that impacts so many women today. It's certainly an issue and something that has impacted my life and the lives of most women that I know. And I am talking about alcohol use and really how our culture gives us this picture and this image of sophistication, and almost like drinking alcohol is part of what it means to be a modern woman, right? We have this culture of the mommy wine culture and the girls' nights out. And when you really look at advertising for alcohol these days, it is all centered around this modern, empowered woman who knows how she likes her drink. She earns her drink at the end of the day or her time off to go and celebrate and essentially binge drink with her friends. You turn on the television and this is what we see. You can't watch a movie, a TV show, reality TV without seeing women in our culture just drinking to excess and having it look so glamorous and like it's just part of who we need to be as women. And so as I've, my own journey, I'm coming up on 2 years of not drinking alcohol and just making that choice to like step off of this treadmill of alcohol use and step away from the cultural norms. And I feel that more and more people are doing what I've done, and there's a good reason for it. And so as I was doing a little more research on specifically how does alcohol really take away women's power, and how does alcohol impact us differently than it does men? And the statistics are really mind-boggling, which is why I wanted to share all of this with you in this episode. And so if you are a woman and, part of the culture today, most likely, drinking is part of your life. And that's something that was certainly part of my life, the way that I would socialize with my friends or even just, date night with my husband. There was an element of alcohol use with all of it. And the fact is, it was very normal, right? Like it is very normal. And in fact, it's when you decide to take a step back, you're actually the odd man out, right? And so just even this topic and bringing up this idea that as a woman, when you buy into this cultural norm of regular alcohol use, here's the damage that it's doing to you. Here's the risks that you are putting yourself at. That may not be something you're aware of, or if you're like me, because I knew a lot of this stuff, you sort of just brush it away because everybody else is doing it, right? If you're going out with your friends and every single one of you is drinking all night, there's nothing different or, there's no red flag about yourself because you're just doing what everyone else is doing. And actually, the statistics are showing that women specifically are drinking more and more. So really, the lie that we're being sold as women is that alcohol is a healthy, empowering, normal part of our life. And really, the truth that we're all kind of turning our eyes away from is the fact that alcohol is an addictive drug. Alcohol is ethanol. And ethanol is an addictive depressant, just by nature. That's what the chemical alcohol is. It's an addictive depressant, and it is a group 1 carcinogen, which, this is in the realm of things like asbestos and, cigarettes and things like that we know, like, okay, that is really linked to cancer. Well, one of the things that I've really been noticing in my research is how closely alcohol use is linked to cancer in women. The National Institute of Health has a statistic that just drinking 1 to 2 drinks per day for women increases your risk of cancer by 30 to 50%. And so that link between alcohol use and increased risk of cancer is growing, and there's so much science behind it. Because again, alcohol, this thing that is so glorified and so glamorized, is actually a carcinogen that we're ingesting into our body, this poison that we're putting in, and then we're expecting to have healthy cells, right? We're expecting to have a healthy, good bill of health when we go to the doctor. But for regularly ingesting alcohol, it doesn't line up. You're not going to regularly take in poison and then expect to have a clean bill of health. So one of the reasons that alcohol is so much worse for women than it is for men is that we metabolize the alcohol slower, which means that basically the poison, the carcinogens stay in our system longer, and it gives it longer time to negatively impact our cells and all of our organs. And so if you think about that, not to say that alcohol isn't, hurting the health of men as well. It is, but it's just doing more damage more quickly to women. And so another reason that alcohol is doing more damage for women is that we have less of the enzyme that breaks the alcohol down in our bodies. And so just the way that we are put together biologically, it's harder for our bodies to process and metabolize this poison. And then at the same time, we've kind of created this women's culture of we're all going to get together and drink, where really a lot of times we're drinking more than the men, but the impact on our body is even worse. And so it's a compounding issue where the bottom line for us women is that we're doing something that's really detrimental to our health. And so another statistic that's pretty frightening is that the death rates related to alcohol in women specifically are up 85% over the last 20 years. And so that gives you a little insight on how much more women are drinking, how much more of a problem this is for us women. And so it's proven that alcohol kills more women than men. So just that alone, just the health aspect of this lifestyle of drinking alcohol as women is pretty scary, but there's so much more. And so moving on from the physical health and some really serious risks that we're at with ingesting alcohol on a regular basis, we move on to our mental health. And for women, a lot of the time when you're drinking and you're justifying that you're drinking and you're, kind of creating your social life around drinking, there's a lot of inner dialogue and there's a lot of questioning yourself and maybe questioning if your friend has a problem. But there's a whole conversation in your head around, is this healthy? Am I coping with alcohol too much? Is this something that I'm modeling for my children in a way that's going to negatively impact them in the future? There's this whole aspect in your inner dialogue, your inner life, that is really chipping away at your self-esteem. Because really, when we pull back the curtain and we drop the facade of alcohol is so glamorous and so great and makes us feel so good, when we put all that aside, all of the crap that we know is really just putting rosy glasses on an addiction, because knowing that alcohol is a drug, it is an addictive depressant. And so when we're addicted to a drug, just like, someone who's addicted to any other substance, right? And there's so many drugs in our culture that we just are appalled by, and we would never consider doing these other drugs in our homes or getting to the point where our bodies are dependent on these illicit substances, right? But because of the cultural norm of alcohol, women are really dealing with addiction to a drug, and this comes up with the desire to drink it more often, the desire to drink or the action of drinking more than you intended to, right? There's all of these different indicators that you are now in the cycle of addiction, but it's done it's such a sneaky way for women because we think it's okay, right? When everything around you tells you this is okay, not only okay, this is cool, this is fun and hip to need this, to enjoy this escape of drinking alcohol. But inside you do know, and you are struggling with, has this gone too far? Am I drinking too much? Is this a problem now? Right? And so all of this, questioning yourself and struggling essentially alone, because for the most part, because it's okay, and unless you have a problem, which really means people in your life have confronted you about it, if your behavior gets really crazy when you drink, or if you've had issues with the law, right? Pretty much those three things would put you in the category of like, okay, we all think you have a problem. So many of us land in the category of like, you're just a social drinker, right? Like you're okay. You're coasting along. Nothing terrible has happened to you yet because of this addiction to alcohol. But and you have the conversation like, gosh, should I have driven home the other day? I didn't intend to drink that much, but I drove home, right? And as mothers, then it's like, gosh, should I behave that way around my kids? Or maybe you drove your kids and you had a couple glasses of wine and you're just justifying and you're questioning and you're waiting for someone to say something, right? All of this is eating away at your mental health. And then, something we've talked about before, just as far as the chemicals in your brain and trying to balance out the neurotransmitters, anxiety and depression are really increased when you're regularly drinking alcohol. And so that, again, is linked to really a declining mental health. And so as I was doing this research specific to women, this was something that kept coming up. Women who drink regularly have a decline in their mental health. And so this comes in right after we looked at all the ways that our physical health is at risk, and our physical health declines with regular alcohol use. Then you very quickly see, and then the mental health is also declining. So another thing that kept coming up in how, this myth of alcohol is empowering for women, another issue that keeps coming up is relationships. And so whether that be your relationship with your spouse or your partner, your relationship with your kids, your relationship with your friends, your family, when we're regularly drinking alcohol, the incident of conflict goes up in our relationships, and the quality and the depth of our relationships goes down. And so this is one of those little sacrifices that when you're in it, you don't really notice. And you might have moments when you notice it. But this is one of those ones that when you do take a step back and you stop drinking and things start to become more clear, you realize, my relationships had so much more room for depth and for closeness, and I was missing out on so many different moments and conversations because I was drinking, right? And when you're drinking, your brain is being altered and you're not fully present with the people around you. And this one hits really hard for women if we stop and think about it, who are you not being present for? If you're buying into this idea that, hey, I get my wine at the end of the day, maybe I'm making dinner and I'm drinking wine, and then I'm eating dinner with the family and the kids and I'm drinking my wine, and you're slowly getting more numb and less present, less in the moment. Really, it's your kids and your partner, your spouse, who are getting less of you, right? You're getting less of them. You're seeing less of what's happening in front of you because the alcohol is really creating this numbing and this fogging effect. So other things that are happening to us women, because we're not able to metabolize the alcohol as quickly as men, and because we don't have enough of the enzymes to break the alcohol down, other things happen to our body, right? And so this isn't the big scary health stuff like the cancer, but this is stuff like aging, right? Like our skin starts to show more age. We get those big bags under our eyes, right? The dark circles. We have more wrinkles because our skin gets dried out, right? It's very dehydrating to drink alcohol on a regular basis. Our sleep is impacted. And so whether this means, you kind of fall right asleep, but then you wake up and you have a very restless sleep, or which something that's another growing trend, another issue that women are dealing with is insomnia. So having those nights or waking up and just not being able to go back to sleep. This is another one of those effects that the regular alcohol use has on our body. Our body is trying to cope with taking in this poison on a regular basis. And even if we've completely accepted that this is fine, this is normal, this is, what people do today, your body hasn't accepted it, right? And your body has all of these ways of showing you hey, this alcohol use is wearing me out, right? And, as women, this is not something that we want, right? We want restful sleep. We certainly don't want to wake up, foggy-headed or with a hangover or just feeling crummy, right? And this goes back into how, now you're really not present for those in your life now in the morning too, because your body is still trying to process this chemical out, right? It's trying to break that alcohol down and get it out of your system, and then that evening you're putting more back in. So it's this whole cycle of really running your body down constantly, but then feeling like you shouldn't feel run down because this is just what everybody does and everyone must be dealing with this. Right? And so this is really going into how fired up I feel when I realize how women are buying into this lie and they're suffering. And that's the thing. And this is when I think back to when I was buying into this lie and I would go out for girls' night and I would be suffering. I would be hurting my body, hurting my mental health, my physical health, my relationships, and then feeling bad about myself because it's why can't I hold it all together, right? Why do I wake up and I have bags under my eyes and I don't feel good, right? Just wishing for the day when you can just wake up and have energy and be excited to take on the day. We all know of people who then their alcohol use gets them in big trouble, right? And this is typically with DUIs or some kind of tragedy. And, unfortunately, it's hard to find a family that hasn't been impacted in some way by alcohol causing an accident or causing, trouble issues with the law or getting arrested. And so this is often when people will stop, hopefully, and be like, okay, this has gotten too far. But my call today and my hope in this, little rant about wanting to empower women, wanting women to take their power back, is that you don't have to get to that point. You don't have to get to the point where your alcohol use has allowed you to make a big life-altering mistake, I am now an associate therapist. And, in our industry, if you get a DUI, they take away your license. And so we get this, publication, and you look to the back and you can see the list of all the different therapists who have had their license taken away or are in some kind of trouble with probation or whatever. And I read them every single month. I go through and it's like, well, what happens? How do people get to that point? And 9 times out of 10, it's DUIs. And so there are big life consequences. And if the only consequence for drinking and driving is getting pulled over and, losing a license that you've spent years to get, and that's your livelihood, that's huge. But of course, that's better than, getting into a fatal accident where somebody loses their life. So the stakes are huge, right? And so when you really step back and look at it, it's insane to me that as a culture and as a society, we continue to just glorify and glamorize drinking alcohol. All right, women. So now we come to the point where we have the power to take back our empowerment and to truly be empowered. It starts with questioning what everyone else is doing. And that's how I started, just questioning, like, maybe this isn't the best way to live. And then allowing that curiosity to propel you to do a little experiment in your own life. And so for me, it was, I'm just going to go 30 days with no alcohol, and I'm just going to see what it feels like, right? I was not committing to a year. I was not committing to a lifetime. I was just like, you know what? I am just going to pause. I'm going to hit pause. And it was January, which January is one of the easiest months to do it because it has become pretty socially acceptable to do a dry January, right? It's something that's kind of trendy, and it's like, oh, we just all drink throughout the holidays, so let's do this cleanse. Let's, do something good for our body. It's the beginning of the year. We can, really dig down and do some healthy things. And so I went into it being open for it to be more than 30 days. But I wasn't even sure if I was going to get through 30 days because it had been probably years since I had stepped back from alcohol for a full 30 days, probably since, being pregnant with my kids. And so having that curiosity, we all know what it feels like to be on this treadmill of drinking and to be part of the crowd, right? And to be doing what everyone else is doing. And we know what that life feels like. But do you know what it feels like to not be drinking? To take that 30, 60, 90 days to step back just as an experiment, knowing full well that the science tells you your physical health is going to get better, your mental health is going to improve, your relationships are going to improve, your skin is going to look nicer and younger, you're going to have better sleep, guaranteed. So you already know there's all these benefits that science and, many others like myself are putting out there. Like, this is what happens when you stop drinking regularly. This pretty amazing things. And for women specifically, because today I am talking to women and I am wanting to share the feeling of empowerment that goes along with choosing to live an alcohol-free life. And I'm not saying that it's without challenges, and most of them are really social, right? And the cool thing about that is after that first 30 days or so, when you have to, tell people like, oh, no, I'm not drinking, and kind of go through that whole song and dance of like separating yourself from everybody else, after the first 30 to 60 days, no one cares. And that's what's been another eye-opener. Like, wow, we feel so self-conscious with this idea of like, oh my gosh, if I stop drinking, people are going to think there's something wrong with me. People are going to think I had a really bad issue with alcohol. There's all of this self-inner talk that's like giving you these reasons to not do it. But once you do it, you realize nobody really cares. You know, there will be those certain relationships that maybe were just about you would go out and drink together, and maybe some of those friendships won't survive, and maybe you won't get invites to everything that you used to, but you're also going to find that maybe you don't want to be in a situation where people are, you know, drinking to excess, and maybe that's not even fun anymore for you. So much opens up when you give yourself this gift, this empowerment of allowing your body to not be physically, chemically addicted to a poisonous substance, right? Just think about that. If you think, and don't label it as alcohol, but just imagine there's this drug that I'm addicted to that is making my physical, mental, emotional health worse. And I could give myself the gift of just not using it anymore. Or even just the gift of, let me take 30 days away from it and really just see, like, is my life worse or is my life better? And just how exciting that is. Really, you want to talk about empowerment. And another great benefit that comes once you do this experiment is this confidence. And as scary as it is to step away from the crowd, to do things differently, to not just, you know, go along with, hey, everybody drinks, so I drink, to be okay with being different, it really does something to build your confidence as well. So there's so many different layers to building confidence and building health when you give yourself this gift and you put down the lie that everyone around you is buying into, and you take it into your own hands. This idea of like, I want to take my power back. I don't have to do what society says I should do. I can try something different and see how it feels. The confidence, the peace of mind, just the peace of not having to go through the whole song and dance of, am I drinking tonight? How much am I drinking? You know, are other people drinking? All of that, whatever that is in your life, getting to put that down, put it aside, never have to worry about it again. And then just to sit back and to notice how health and vitality is restored in your body, in your mind, in your soul as you take care of yourself. And so that is my message today. And men, this message really can apply to you as well. While your bodies are a little better at breaking down alcohol and all of that, the statistics and the science is really showing us that it's really bad for women. Men can also benefit. So this is not one-sided, but in my experience as a woman, I really just wanted to put this message out to other women to give you permission to step away from the crowd and to put down that glass of champagne and that margarita and just question and try out a different life. Stop looking at sobriety as something that only people with a problem have to endure, but as the most empowering life that you can lead. And again, it can start with just trying it out, stepping back from alcohol for 30 or 60 days and just making yourself the test subject. You know, the science tells you you'll feel better, but will you? Like, give it a try. And that is my message and my hope for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back next week with another message for you.